The letter from the HOA arrived on a Tuesday morning, and by the time I finished reading it, I was laughing so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. According to the notice, my small collection of plastic flamingos was creating a visual disturbance and negatively affecting the appearance of the neighborhood. I looked out the window at the 6 pink flamingos standing peacefully near my flower bed, and honestly thought it had to be some kind of joke. They had been there for years. Neighbors liked them. Kids smiled when they walked past. Visitors took photos with them. Somehow, after all that time, the HOA suddenly decided those flamingos were a serious problem. What they did not realize was that their complaint was about to inspire a response that would become neighborhood legend. Before we get into the story, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Karen Stories Daily. If you enjoy HOA drama, entitled Neighbor Stories, and unbelievable real-life situations, this one starts with a few harmless flamingos and ends with something nobody expected. I moved into the neighborhood nearly 7 years ago. For the most part, it was a pleasant place to live. The streets were clean, the homes were well-maintained, and most residents got along just fine. The HOA could be annoying at times, but usually nothing major happened. A few years after moving in, I placed several pink plastic flamingos in my front yard. There was no deep meaning behind it. I simply thought they were funny. The yard already had flowers, shrubs, and decorative stones. The flamingos added a little personality. Most people seemed to enjoy them. Children pointed at them while walking by. Neighbors occasionally made jokes about them. One family even gave me an extra flamingo as a birthday gift. The birds became something of a neighborhood landmark. Then a new HOA board was elected almost immediately. The atmosphere changed. The new board seemed obsessed with rules. People started receiving notices about minor issues that nobody had ever cared about before. Mailbox, decorations, garden ornaments, outdoor furniture, everything suddenly became a topic of concern. I had a feeling the flamingos would eventually attract attention. I was right. One afternoon, I opened my mailbox and found the official violation. Notice, according to the board, the flamingos were considered inappropriate lawn decorations. The notice demanded removal within 30 days. I read it twice because I honestly could not believe it. 6. Plastic birds were apparently threatening the character of the entire neighborhood. At first I considered simply removing them. Then I attended the next HOA meeting. That meeting changed everything when residents asked questions about the new enforcement policies. The board members repeatedly talked about maintaining standards and protecting property values. Someone asked whether decorative lawn ornaments were prohibited. The answer was surprisingly specific. The board objected to certain decorations they considered tacky. That word stuck in my mind. Tacky, not prohibited, not against the rules, just tacky. The more I thought about that wording, the more interested I became. After the meeting, I went home and carefully reviewed every HOA guideline. I checked landscaping rules. I checked decoration rules. I checked property appearance standards. The more I read, the more I noticed something important. There was no rule limiting the number of lawn ornaments. There was no rule specifically mentioning garden gnomes. There was no rule limiting artistic yard displays. The flamingos had become a target because the board disliked them. That was very different from an actual violation. A few days later, I removed the flamingos. The HOA probably thought they had won. What they did not know was that I had already started planning something much bigger. You see, collecting unusual garden decorations had always been a hobby of mine. Over the years, I had accumulated dozens of hand-painted gnomes from local artists, flea markets, craft fairs, and antique shops. Most were stored safely in my garage. Some were funny, some were detailed works of art, some were completely ridiculous. As I looked through the collection, an idea started forming. If the HOA wanted the flamingos gone because they were supposedly tacky, perhaps I should replace them with something fully compliant, something artistic, something legal, something impossible to ignore. I spent the next several weekends visiting markets, antique stores, and local artists. Everywhere I went, I searched for unique gnomes. The collection grew rapidly. 20 became 50. 50 became 100. Soon the number became difficult to count. By the time I finished, I owned nearly 300 hand-painted gnomes. Each one was different. Colors, different poses, different designs. Some held lanterns, some carried tools, some sat on tiny benches, some appeared to be having conversations with one another. Then came installation day. I carefully arranged them throughout the front yard, around flower beds and near pathways beside trees across decorative landscaping features. The result was unlike anything the neighborhood had ever seen. The display looked less like a yard and more like a tiny gnome village. People immediately started slowing down when they drove past. Neighbors stopped to stare. Children loved it. Visitors took photographs. Within a week, my yard had become one of the most talked about places in the community. And judging by the expression on the face of the HOA president when he first saw it, I had a feeling the real drama was only beginning. The reaction from the neighborhood was even bigger than I expected. Within days, people were walking past my house just to see the gnome village. Families stopped to take photos. Children tried counting how many gnomes they could find. Some neighbors treated it like a scavenger hunt because every visit revealed details they had missed before. The HOA board was not nearly as excited. A week after the display was finished, I received another letter. This time, the board claimed the number of decorations might be excessive. I read the notice carefully. Once again, there was a problem for them. The rules contained no limit on the number of garden ornaments. The board clearly disliked the display, but disliking something was not the same as having authority to ban it. I responded politely and asked them to identify the exact rule being violated. Days passed, then weeks. No answer arrived. Meanwhile, the gnome village kept becoming more popular. Neighbors started giving nicknames to certain gnomes. Children created stories about them. Visitors from nearby neighborhoods came to see what everyone was talking about. The funniest part was that many residents who never cared about lawn decoration suddenly became interested because of the HOA controversy. The more attention the board gave the display, the more famous it became. Then something unexpected happened. A local community social media page featured photos of the gnome village. The post received thousands of views. People loved it. Comments poured in from residents across the area. Many praised the creativity. Others said it was one of the most unique yard displays they had ever seen. The HOA was not prepared for that level of attention. At the next community meeting, the gnomes became the main topic. Several residents stood up and spoke in support of the display. One neighbor explained that the village brought personality to the neighborhood. Another said children genuinely enjoyed seeing it during evening walks. Retired teacher even described it as a fun community attraction. The board listened. Quietly, they had expected complaints. Instead, they heard support. Then came the moment that completely changed the situation. A board member finally admitted there was no specific rule prohibiting the display. The room became silent. That statement effectively ended the argument. Without a rule violation, there was very little they could do. A few weeks later, I received a final letter. The matter was closed. No more fines, no more warnings, no more demands. The gnome village could stay. From that point forward, the controversy disappeared. The HOA moved on to other issues. The gnomes remained exactly where they were. Over time, the display became something of a local landmark. Visitors still stopped for photos. Children still pointed excitedly at their favorite characters. Some families even made it a tradition to visit whenever new gnomes appeared. Looking back, the entire situation still makes me laugh. The HOA could have ignored 6 harmless flamingos, and nobody would have thought twice about them. Instead, their decision inspired a display that was 50 times larger and impossible for anyone to overlook. They wanted less attention. They ended up creating more tension than ever. And the best part was that everything followed the rules. In the end, the flamingos were gone. The HOA got exactly what they asked for. They just never imagined what would replace them. If you enjoyed this story, let us know in the comments how many gnomes you think is too many gnomes. And do not forget to share this video and subscribe to Karen Stories Daily for more HOA drama, neighborhood conflicts, and unbelievable real-life stories. Sometimes the funniest victories come from simply following the rules better than the people enforcing them.